What's going on, everybody? This is the Oregon Football Report. I am your host, Will Ortner. We've got some major news around the transfer portal and one of the top cornerbacks in there, A.J. Harris. Will he end up being an Oregon Duck next season? Well, a couple of the guys over at On3 really seem to think so, but we might be getting that answer a little bit sooner than we already thought, too. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button. The minute that there is news around the Oregon Ducks, I will be here to deliver it to you. You do not want to miss out on any of the content that we have going out here on the channel. So go on in, hit that sub button. So for those of you who do not know, A.J. Harris is one of the top corners in the transfer portal right now. He spent a year over at Georgia, but the last 2 seasons he has spent over with the Penn State Nittany Lions. Been a fantastic player over there for James Franklin and the rest of that crew. In fact, did a pretty darn good job as over 80 tackles, had an interception. He forced a couple of fumbles, got a fumble recovery, lots of pass breakups. Big, strong, physical corner, not afraid to go in and bang bodies and can be a real lockdown on the outside. That's the other thing. He's a little bit bigger of a corner, so it's important to note. He's obviously been someone that a lot of teams want to go after, including the Oregon Ducks, who have had a multitude of players in that defensive back room head on in to the transfer portal. A couple of them were safeties like Kingston Lopa. A couple of them were cornerbacks, and I think it is important to note that the Ducks believe, and I believe, that they will have a very strong team next year. So if they are going to have to revitalize a position like corner, the best way to do it is through the transfer portal, and then hope that some of the young kids that are being brought in will end up taking gigantic leaps forward throughout the spring and into the fall and then be able to come in and play. But not everyone can be a Brandon Finney Jr., right? So right now, A.J. Harris is down to his final 3 schools. Those schools are, of course, the Oregon Ducks, the Indiana Hoosiers, and the Missouri Tigers. Now, I was on Twitter, and all 3 schools have people saying, he's actually going to commit. He's actually going to commit to us. He's going to commit to us. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. So right now, there's no real feel. According to On3, that's Steve Wilfong and Pete Nakos, it sounds like Harris is going through a lot of that interview process today. So it's important to note that you might hear some quick breaking news and a quick turnaround on where Harris is going to play next season. It does feel like, though, that the Ducks are the number 1 option to land him. That, again, coming from Steve Wilfong and Pete Nakos of On3. So I'm going to ask you, after you initially heard a lot of the breakdown and a lot of the news around Harris, what is your reaction to it? Are you happy? Are you excited? Or are you still focused on the college football playoff going on right now? Let me know down below in the comment section what your thoughts are and where you're at on the A.J. Harris news and the A.J. Harris rumors, because it's a little bit of news, a little bit of rumors. Now, where would Harris fit into this Oregon football defense next year? And it's very clear to me he would instantly play on the opposite side of Brandon Finney Jr., who has been probably the best defensive freshman for the Oregon Ducks in quite some time. I'm having a hard time of thinking of some other players who came in right away and had that type of impact. Obviously, Mateo Uyunglele was very good, but I don't know if he's quite to the extent of Finney. You go through Kayvon Thibodeau as well. Very, very good. I'm sure I'll have a couple people in the comment section. Will, what about this guy in the 90s and the 80s? And to that, I just say I apologize for not knowing them. When you look at Brandon Finney's stats, he's clearly going to be that cornerback 1, over 40 tackles, a ton of pass breakups. Yes, I know he had a lot of interceptions against Texas Tech, 2 of them, in fact, and that's where the bulk majority of his interceptions have come from, but he also intercepted Fernando Mendoza. So when you look at the type of season that he's had as a freshman, it can only go up from there. And I do think that is important to note and important to talk about. Now, Harris would be a little bit of an elder statesman, obviously having been in college football for quite some time. What he would give the Ducks as well is someone who can match up with those bigger, taller, longer wide receivers that we're starting to see kind of pop up more and more in college football, because there are more and more basketball players that are looking around saying, hey, you know what? my life would be a whole lot easier, and I have a much better chance of going pro if I go into football. Now, a lot of those guys are going to have to be willing to take a shot or two, but we're starting to see that type of player get added. Harris would be perfect complement, come on into this team and really help take those next steps forward. What could help with the recruitment around Harris? When you look at Missouri, when you look at Indiana, I do believe that if the Ducks are at number one right now to land Harris, that is one in part because of how well and how good of a coach Dan Lanning is, how well of a recruiter he is. But more importantly, it would be what is surrounding this Oregon football team. I think we have all understood that this year is kind of like found money when it comes to the Ducks. Obviously, everyone expected the Ducks to be pretty strong this year, but I don't know how many people expected the Oregon football team to necessarily get to the college football semifinals. It was always on the table, and it was always on the table for them to be a national championship team, but it did feel like next year was going to be the big year because you knew you were going to lose a couple of players to the draft. That is what it is. But a lot of really strong, talented players are still in the infancy of their college football career. Now, the thought was always that next year would be the team where, hey, you are going to come into the year as that number one top candidate. Well, because of the success that you've had this year, I think that has also led to some players wanting to go elsewhere because they know that the younger cats that are coming in are just as talented as the guys who are starting or more so. But what I think is more important about what they could be pitching to Harris is a national championship or bust type of mentality. When you have a team that is this strong and this good, you can usually get some of the better transfer portal players. We see it in NFL with free agency as well for maybe a little bit of a discount because you know, or the player knows, that they have a chance to do something uniquely special. And say what you will about a lot of college football players, I think that there is kind of an attack sometimes now because you see players go for NIL money. Hey, I'm going to go to a school that might be lesser than because they're paying me more money. You still have a competitive edge with a lot of these players, and going to a place where you have the potential to win a national championship is a gigantic deal. Now, obviously, everyone is kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with Dante Moore, but if Dan Lanning and the rest of that Oregon football staff is able to go into that Zoom meeting or go into that interview or conversation or news with A.J. Harris, and if they're able to tell him, hey, we're pretty confident that Dante Moore is coming back, why would A.J. Harris go anywhere else? Like, I understand it. Indiana's bringing in the Hoover kid, right? They're bringing in the TCU quarterback. He's a strong quarterback. Very good. He ain't better than Dante Moore. Let's say Dante Moore isn't coming back to Oregon. Then the Ducks football staff can go to Harris and say, hey, we think we're going to get Sam Levitt, or we think we're going to get Dylan Raiola, because there hasn't been a whole lot of news around that front either. Well, if they think, hey, whether Dante Moore stays or goes, we're going to have one of the top quarterbacks in college football next year, that's a big reason for A.J. Harris to go to Oregon. When you look at that Missouri team, yeah, I think that they've got something special going with Drinkwitz. In fact, I think Eli Drinkwitz is one of the better coaches in college football. Don't think he's better than Dan Lanning, and I don't think that Missouri has a clear path to the college football playoff next year. The SEC is rough, and they're very freaking good, and there isn't one team that really stands out above the rest. And while you can make the argument that the Oregon Ducks do not stand out above the rest in the Big Ten, they stand out above the majority of the rest. It's Oregon, it's Ohio State, it's Indiana, and then you can make the argument that right behind those three, you've got USC, Michigan, and I was going to say UW, but something kind of bad happened over there the other day, so maybe not UW anymore, right? So when you talk about it, it feels to me like it should then be an Oregon versus Indiana comparison or a fight. And if Oregon goes out on Friday, and they beat Indiana, well, then why would Harris go there anyways? Or the other argument is, well, Indiana's going to lose a decent amount of these guys who are on this team, and they're going to have to build through the transfer portal again. If I'm Harris, I'd rather go to the place that's already shown that they can recruit and build through the high school levels. Right now, the Ducks are the favorite to land Harris. And I'm not going to sit here and say that the Ducks can't offer the best NIL package because that's probably not necessarily true. But what I will say is, if the Ducks are one of the top candidates, and they are the top candidate to get A.J. Harris to build maybe one of the scariest 1-2 punches in the cornerback room in all of college football, we should all be pretty damn excited. And we should all be pretty fired up to see what happens for the Ducks later on this season. I'll tell you right now, I'm pretty freaking excited. I want you to go into your crystal ball, though, and let me know. A.J. Harris will play for the Ducks in 2026. Do you agree with that statement or disagree? I think right now, I agree. And it might be, no offense to the long snapper and the punter who have committed to the Ducks in the transfer portal. This would be a big signing. This would be a big signing for the Oregon Ducks. So let me know what you think down below in the comment section. That's going to do it for today's episode. If you love the Oregon football team, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We will have a live watch party here on the Oregon Football Report on Friday, so you can hang out with myself and hang out with Searle while we bring you all the action from that Peach Bowl. You don't want to miss out on it. It's a great time. We really enjoy everyone who comes in and hangs out with us. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys next time.